center where we train on site.
Serum started with just producing vaccine for tetanus, but it's producing a lot more vaccines now. What is the next big thing you think?
A global pandemic flu vaccine is something that we're working on, and I think the world will need that. Not only for the annual flu cases, but God forbid there's a flu pandemic. I think we are very well poised to make 1.5, 2 billion doses and roll it out very quickly to protect the world. And we have, of course, the other vaccines, as we talked about, HPV and malaria, that we've just launched, and we're going to scale that up as well.
Behind the bright lights and adrenaline of pro sports is an equally exciting world of negotiations and deal making.
That's what we cover each week on our podcast, The Deal.
I love the fact that you have, we say the cojones, but I can't say that in Bloomberg.
Moxie.
Yeah, Moxie. I'm Alex Rodriguez, former baseball player turned business executive.
And I'm Jason Kelly, a journalist at Bloomberg. Over the next couple months, we'll hear from all-stars like Billie Jean King.
Well, what should I learn? What should I do? I said, learn the business.
Jay Williams.
You're an asset, but how do you become the principal?
Paul Rabel.
We're going to be the league of digital, and that's why you're going to invest.
Adina Friedman.
I definitely am competitive.
David Rubenstein.
People don't come up to me on the street and say, let's talk about this private equity deal you did recently. No one does that. They say, let's talk about the team.
And so many more.
You going to clap?
Go.
Good morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Welcome back to the opening trade.
This is Bloomberg Technology.
This is the Asia trade.
You're watching the close. Welcome to Balance of Power.
This is Bloomberg.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute geopolitical news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Stephen Engel at the Forbidden City in Beijing, and this is Bloomberg.
Good morning, this is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. I'm Tom McKenzie in London. These are the stories that set your agenda.
Taking you from the U.S. market's close to the overnight session in Asia. We'll walk you through what you need to know to kickstart the European trading day. Live from our European headquarters, we bring you the day's top market-moving stories, unmatched expert analysis, and on-the-ground reporting from across the continent. Tune in every weekday at 6 a.m. London time, only on Bloomberg Television.
In January 2023, just after Indian billionaire Gautam Adani toppled Jeff Bezos to become the world's second richest person, a New York-based short seller delivered a gut punch. Hindenburg Research accused the Adani Group of pulling off what it called the largest con in corporate history. Despite the Adanis denying the allegations of stock manipulation and fraud, a stock sell-off wiped more than $150 billion off the group's value. It shook investor confidence in the massive conglomerate and in India's equity markets and its regulators.
Adani's CFO who denied all these allegations.
India's Adani Group says it's exploring legal action against the US short seller Hindenburg Research.
Up until now, he's sort of been out of the eyes of global scrutiny.
And concerns around that and how they bearing financially have been brought up before.
Since then, Adani has won a reprieve from the Supreme Court. The shares have recovered as a group slashed debt and won over new investors. It's against this backdrop that the 62-year-old founder revealed to Bloomberg that he wants to step down when he turns 70. And he's executing one of the world's largest and most challenging transfers of wealth to the next generation. The $250 billion Adani Group controls a big chunk of the infrastructure that runs India's $4 trillion economy. And a complex leadership transition from Gautam Adani to his two sons and two nephews is loaded with risk for the group, as well as the country and beyond. In a rare and exclusive interview in which Adani would only discuss succession, Bloomberg's Anto Antony asked the tycoon if the Hindenburg report had an impact on his plans.
Mr. Adani, you said that the succession plan was conceived about 10 years back. Now, the last 2 years incidents, the investigations, Hindenburg report, has it affected it in any way, the implementation?
In hindsight, I can say that it is this incident makes family more together and work very hard to fight it back. And I definitely basically see that they have converted this incident into the great opportunity for family uniteness. Secondly, they work hard and whatever corrections in each and every aspect of our businesses we have to do. And in fact, basically this Hindenburg issues of this last year was a Adani Group history is the highest performance.
As part of the succession plan, Gautam Adani's nephew Pranav, the eldest among the four, oversees most of the group's consumer businesses. He's also leading one of the company's highest profile projects, redeveloping Asia's largest slum, Dharavi, located in India's financial capital, Mumbai. Older son Karan runs the cement, ports, and logistics businesses, which are among the biggest in Asia. Karan's younger brother Jeet is looking after India's largest network of privately operated airports, along with the group's defense business that builds weapons from small arms to missiles. And their cousin Sagar oversees the group's energy projects, including the contentious coal arm. He's leading efforts to build the world's largest renewable energy park on a barren salt flat in western India.
When the Hindenburg report
In a series of exclusive interviews, the four of them told us about the fallout from the short seller's allegations.
I would say that this report came as a shock to many people who were not expecting anything of this one. From our viewpoint, purely this report was nothing but accumulation of everything that was returned and alleged over the last 10 years before that, but also very beautifully gift wrapped and presented in a way that was, explosive and shocking, so to speak. There was nothing significantly new in that whatsoever, anyways. So everything that the report said was in some way, form, or the other there in news before. More importantly, the report that came, we gave a very, very long and comprehensive response in just 72 hours on every single point of the Hindenburg report. Strategic, long-term global equity partners, they've only doubled down since the Hindenburg report came. So our institutional shareholding has only, in fact, increased going from that point on, rather than go the other way.
For some of the second-generation Adani leaders, the Hindenburg report came as a bolt from the blue, and they had to act quickly to ensure that the business continued to operate smoothly.
I think it was definitely, personally speaking, a very stressful and tough time. Emotions were high. But I think the most important thing that was on my mind definitely was what can I do to support, obviously, the family, but more than that, how do I support the larger family, which is the employees? Because the biggest risk that you run in times like these is demotivation. People, sort of losing hope. And to make sure that everyone is motivated, everyone knows that what we are doing is for a greater purpose, it's for we're making real impact, and we continue day on with the work, because these things, they happen, they come, they go. But we don't want to lose motivations.
One overhang, even right now, is the kind of investigations or probes which are there into the company. And also at the same time, there are allegations regarding opaqueness in the holding structure. How do you assess the investor concerns on this trend?
See, I think if you look at from investor perspective, right, as a group, we went through this transition from 2007-8. So if you remember, in 2007-8, we had a holding structure. We had Adani Enterprise, and then we had all the other companies which were subsidiaries of it. And again, getting feedback from the investors, they said that we would like to have a clean structure. And that's why we started demerging. So ports got demerged, Adani Power got demerged. So basically, the shareholders who want to invest in ports, they know that they come into APSL. Or investors who know that they want to only invest in energy, they know that they want to come into renewable. So one is, there is a clean structure from a holding perspective. So there is no crisscross holding, which is very common in other groups in India. So there's no crisscross holding which is happening. So it's a very clear structure. Family holds directly into each of these entities. Second is when you look at from a family perspective, family holding perspective, all of that has been disclosed because we have 23 or 25 international issues, bond issues across various group companies, again rated by all international agencies, investment grade rating. And part of it, unless you don't disclose all of this, there's not much of you don't get through that hoops of getting that rating. And so all of that has been disclosed.
There were learnings, I would say, from the whole Hindenburg episode. As a group, we have always been very focused on operational excellence, on execution. There are times when we have missed out in the kind of communications that we should do to our shareholders, to media in particular. Now, from an optic point of view, we've become very clear that we go out and communicate more transparently about the structures and about things like the finances, and we are going out communicating more.
But at least 7 of the group's companies have received so-called show cause notices from India's markets regulator, SEBI, about allegations of non-compliance with listing regulations. And according to Bloomberg reporting, U.S. prosecutors are examining whether an Adani entity or people linked to the company, including Gautam Adani, bribed officials for favorable treatment on an Indian energy project. The Adanis say they have not received any notice from the U.S. Justice Department. The DOJ says no Adani unit has been charged with wrongdoing, and that investigations don't always lead to prosecutions. Coming up, the next generation answers the critics who say their family is too close to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's BJP.
Being close to a political party does not necessarily mean that you get the vote.
When Inside Adani continues.
The countdown is on. Everything you need to get the edge at the end of the market day.
Big tech earnings kick off later this afternoon.
Gilead is coming out right now. We have Take-Two numbers. Back to the markets, right? Our bread and butter.
NVIDIA is one of the best stories of the tech space.
That actually matters a whole lot more.
It might shock some of your viewers.
You're watching The Close.
Get ahead of tomorrow's trading with The Close. Weekdays on Bloomberg. Context changes everything. From the world of politics to the world of business, Joe Matthew and Keely Lines deliver news, insight, and analysis live 2 times a day every trading day. Balance of Power at 1 and 5 Eastern, only on Bloomberg.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute financial news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Michael McKee at the Federal Reserve, and this is Bloomberg.
मोदी जी की हार होती है, स्टॉक मार्केट कहता है भैया मोदी जी गए तो अदानी जी गए. मतलब डायरेक्ट रिलेशनशिप है, करप्शन की रिलेशनशिप है.
That's Indian opposition leader Rahul Gandhi, right after the 2024 elections in which Prime Minister Modi's party lost its majority in parliament. Investors sold Adani company stocks as soon as the results were announced, cutting the group's market value by around $45 billion. While they've since regained ground, the sell-off highlighted a key concern with the Adani empire.
Many people attribute your business growth to how you strategize your company's priorities to that of the government's priorities, whether it is state or center. Is that something that you will ask the next generation to continue?
No, so that is basically group has decided, irrespective of the government. Okay, when whatever the government basically decide the priority for the nation's point of view, we always basically focus our business in that direction. And I strongly believe that when you basically business directions towards government priorities, you always basically get the tailwinds and not the headwinds. And that helps your group to grow faster.
The opportunities in India's infrastructure sector are enormous. Morgan Stanley predicts that the country will drive a fifth of the world's economic expansion this decade, generating more than $400 billion in annual output growth. Any fresh bid by the Adanis to get an even bigger slice of that pie may face closer scrutiny under a weakened BJP government.
There seems to be a widely held perception that the group's fortunes are very closely tied to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's. How do you address this concern?
See, I think there is a very strong difference between perception and factual reality. People's perceptions beyond a point we can't do much about, but if you look at factual reality of what we've done across the group, right? Majority of our growth period as the Adani portfolio of companies and the Adani group overall has come prior to the time of Prime Minister Modi. Even today, when a certain party is in power, we work in 22 different states all across the country. Many of those states are non-BJP states, right? Ultimately, what people don't realize outside is that from a business perspective, most of the businesses is done in the states, not in the center.
Being close to a political party does not necessarily mean that you get the work. You get the work because you are able to deliver, you are competitive in a market, and you are able to deliver on your commitments. And especially in infrastructure business, we are not a fly-by-night operator. If I have taken a concession of building a port, I had better deliver it, because if I don't deliver it, I cannot have 15 ports. I will be stuck at one port. Same as in the power or in renewable. So wherever we have delivered on that promise, we have delivered the infrastructure, and delivering greenfield infrastructure in India is not easy. We have made it one of the most profitable, and we have run it in the most efficient manner. You don't have these three things, there's no point being close to any political party, or because today's India is no more about giving favors. It is all about whether you're competitive in the landscape or not.
The Adani strategy of aligning with the government's priorities has helped it become almost too big to fail. It's India's top importer of coal, its largest owner of renewable energy farms, and its second biggest manufacturer of cement. Adani-owned ports carry half the country's shipping containers, while more than 80 million people use its airports each year. And now the group is taking its influence global, again aligned with the government's strategic priorities. It's developing ports in Vietnam, Israel, and Sri Lanka that seek to challenge China's regional dominance.
We are also invested in a lot of neighboring countries. Now, when we enter any neighboring countries, besides financial decisions that we take on the project, how good they are, we also look at what that host country requires. Whether it's infrastructure, energy, resources, we are aligned with those countries' national priorities. Then the most important is the strategic interest of India also should be aligned. So when all those three aligns, I think this is the best investment strategy. So I think it's false and incorrect to say that, Adani Group is only invested or is only looking at where, the present party is invested.
I think the ambition is by 2030 we want to be handling at least 1 billion ton of volume, predominantly coming out of India, because as India is going to grow, the trade is going to grow, and obviously and we are in the right position to take that sort of growth. I think the second part is to give a reliable supply chain solution into our neighboring countries and making India as a center point of that whole supply chain. And that is the idea, that how rather than cargoes getting transshipped in Dubai or in Singapore, how do we make India as the center point of the overall supply chain from east to west? And that's where we are looking to play, to create that larger vision of making India as a center point.
The biggest example of how deftly the Adani Group can pivot towards a government priority is this massive renewable energy park they're setting up in the dusty salt flats of Western India. Covering an area 5 times the size of Paris, it's expected to power 18 million homes when it's completed in 5 years. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has promised that renewable energy will fulfill 50% of India's energy needs by the end of this decade. So the Adanis, who are India's biggest coal importers, say they're planning to invest over $100 billion into their renewable energy plans.
We'll participate. From our perspective, the predominant preference and the push is to invest in renewables. So more than 80% of whatever we are doing across the group is more than 75% of all capital we are spending across all the group companies is in sustainable energy solutions. So that's transmission lines for evacuating green power, that's investing in generation capacity of renewables, that's in distribution verticals that we have which enhance the mix of green energy in our distribution companies. So it's basically across different things, but with a predominant focus on sustainable and green energy, we'll invest roughly around $100 billion across the next 10 years in various energy sources.
So in line with the government's current projections and roadmap, what is the timeline within which you are looking at phasing out the coal?
So government's looking at a gradual ramp down until 2060. So we have a lot of assets where we have PPAs and we have obligations in which we have to supply to various state government discoms, central utilities, and to many discoms and to the end consumers ultimately. So those obligations, contractual obligations, of course, have to be met. Our thermal platform is completely ring-fenced. It's completely independent. So with the cash flow that that company generates, that company takes its independent call with regards to how it wants to invest its own cash flow. Some of it they'll use for growth, some of it they'll use to distribute. But again, all of those plans are going to be dependent on the demand profile of the country.
Up next, we ask Gautam Adani how he'll avoid the family fractures that have roiled rivals.
These integrations will never happen in the Adani group. And I'm very much confident, and for that,
With Inside Adani continues.
From the beating heart of global finance, economics, and politics, and wherever newsmakers are moving markets, Bloomberg brings you conversations that allow for deep discussions and important insights. How has that shaped your strategy for the bank? Is this new normal? Is this like a catalyst? Do you think we're in a new phase for dividend policy overall? That's a great question. I'm Francine Lacqua, and this is The Pulse, every weekday only on Bloomberg.
U.S. jobs numbers are released. Bloomberg has the report under surveillance with crucial data and expert analysis at terminal speed. Nobody covers jobs day like Bloomberg. From the world of politics to the world of business, Joe Matthew and Keely Lyons deliver news, insight, and analysis live 2 times a day every trading day. Balance of Power and 1 and 5 Eastern, only on Bloomberg.
It's the countdown to the market open, and we bring you the first trades across Europe.
We'll debate the most important stories and what will drive the big investment decisions throughout the morning. I'm Guy Johnson.
I'm Kriti Gupta.
And I'm Anna Edwards. Join us every weekday morning for the opening trade, live at 7 a.m. here in London.
Only on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
when I gave the G2 the options of independent businesses, they decided collectively that they want multiple businesses but one family. So they have a strong unity among themselves. The succession is all about both continuity and change, and it is a gradual process. This will ensure that the succession is seamless, is a smooth, and a sustainable. The structural succession plan is supported by a strong cultural values. Our values provide the glue that holds together our arrangement.
Gautam Adani says under his succession plan, the four scions will need each other to run their businesses. Common services for the entire group, such as HR, finance, IT, and administration, have been carved up among the four to make them communicate and work closely with each other. HR is under Karan, while finance is under Saga. Jeet runs IT.
Not exactly sure where this model came from and why they went with a 30,000 kV motor. It's heavier overall. I'll show you the weight here in a second. They're using a heavier motor They're using the 5-in-1 now instead of the 4-in-1 plus the external receiver, and that's actually heavier as well. So we've gone up in weight. So it's before it was 17.1 grams for the standard Air 65, and this Champions Edition comes in at 17.7 grams. Now they do give you some in the box, so you do get a spare set of props, of course, and then you get the USB plug, of course, to connect to your Betaflight. But then they include a set of these nylon screws, which are for the motors, and these will reduce the weight a little bit. I think it's about half a gram. So if you want to get down to like 17.2, 17.3, you can swap out the metal screws for the plastic ones on the motors to get closer to that weight. And because that compensates for the heavier flight controller and the heavier motors. Now, obviously, these aren't huge differences in weight because, it's like 0.6 of a gram heavier. And it's still a rocket ship, even at 17.7 grams. I guess, this 30,000 kV motor has a lot of power. Surprisingly, not that much loss in efficiency, even still on the 1S260 lava battery. My low battery warning came on around 3.5 minutes of flight, and I don't think I fully charged this all the way. For some reason, when I plugged it in, it showed it at like a little under 4.2 volts, which was kind of weird because I thought if I charged this to 4.3 volts or 4.35. So apparently this wasn't even a full battery. I still got 3.5 minutes on this setup here, which was surprising because it's heavier, it's got a much higher kV motor, and this prop is also less efficient than the HQ prop. So it's kind of interesting when they went with these choices. The performance of this one, it's just like the 30,000 kV motor that you saw from the Hummingbird RS video, the one from Newbie Drone. The kV is, in my opinion, too high for regular people. Yeah, there's probably some pro racers out there that are thinking 30,000 kV, that's way too low. I mean, I need 45,000 kV. Apparently there's kV motors that are that high, I've heard. So kind of crazy. If you want a rocket ship that's going to go around the track in like a minute and burn your battery out, I suppose that's doable for those really skilled pilots. But for me, I think for most regular people, 30,000 kV is a little bit on the high side. I got it under control after the first few flights. It gets away from you very quickly if you aren't really paying attention. If you're flying in a small space, you'll crash right away. And that's okay. It's very durable. They did modify this thing a little bit to help with durability. So they put some glue or something on the UFL connector there. So hold that down so it's not going to pop off. Again, this canopy is a new color, but it's also been modified. They gave you a spare. They've altered it here on these sides, and it's also here as well so that it doesn't interfere with the UFL connector. Same camera, I think it's the CO3. I don't think any difference there. Still quite a bit of camera angle, and same Air 65 frame. Everything else is the same, just a little bit heavier motor, a little bit heavier 5-in-1. If you're wondering what the difference in the weight between the 4-in-1 and the 5-in-1, so the 4-in-1 with the receiver versus the 5-in-1 with the built-in receiver, it's about 0.3 of a gram to 0.4 of a gram, like around 0.35 grams heavier for the 5-in-1. So that's what they went with here. Honestly, with a higher kV motor and the 260 milliamp hour battery, I think it's at least 3 minutes of flight is adequate, and then it is just kind of wild. I mean, it's like you're trying to ride one of those like bulls, like those bull rides at the bar. And it's pretty, it's got a lot of, just like the Newbie Drone one, it's got a lot of power you got to sort of tame and keep under control, which it can be challenging, but it's a lot of fun still. And I'll just show you what this weighs on my scale. It's a little over 17.7 grams, and then with the 260-1S, we're just under 24.82 grams. Anyway, some interesting decisions they made with this model here. I'm not sure if it's just sort of in response to the Newbie Drone model, which that one comes in at 16.5 grams with 30,000 kV motors. That has some other issues that I made a video on my second channel. you can go watch it if you missed it. But yeah, I think what I would do is if you do want to get this version of the Air 65, I would, and you find that the motors are a little bit too fast for you and you get just a little bit too much speed, if you're flying in a smaller area, just put in a motor output limit in, and that'll artificially reduce the kV from 30,000 to, you can do pretty much whatever. I recommend something around, say, 25,000 kV, so maybe you put in a motor output limit of maybe 80%, somewhere in there, and I think you'll find that it's going to be a lot more controllable with a little more throttle resolution. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same drone, the Air 65, just with the 5-in-1 and a little bit heavier motor. And if you're wondering why it's heavier, it's because it's got the ball bearings instead of the bushings. The silver motors, they're basically a little bit cheaper. They come in bushings, and supposedly they wear out a little bit faster, but honestly, yeah, unless you fly pretty much 24/7 for like a couple of years, you probably won't notice much difference between the two motors. It's just that the ones with the ball bearings, these black and red ones, they're a little bit heavier. But supposedly the bearings do offer a little bit more durability. That's what I've heard through the grapevine. So if you do crash pretty severely, then maybe this one here is the way to go, because if you're really worried about crashing and having to replace the motors, then yeah, you might as well go with the more premium motor to help you with that the durability. But in terms of pricing, I was not told what the difference would be. I'm imagining it's probably going to be the same, but possibly just a few dollars more. So I'm still expecting it to be maybe around $100 if there is a price increase. So maybe $99 would be like my guess if they do increase the price, or it'll be just the same price, around $95. Anyway, those are all the differences. I'll link the original Air 65 video down in the video description. You guys can check that out. I think I flew that mainly with the 300 milliamp hour battery, but I think the 260 is the way to go on these really light setups. So I would recommend that battery. So I'll link that battery in the description as well. That'll do it for this video. Talk to you guys in the next one. Tune seems to be pretty locked in. I don't hear anything weird. Nice roll. Nice flips. Alright, so we're checking the new newbie drone Acroby 75 BL V5. And so this is the version 5 of the flight controller in there. 75mm whoop. Same cockroach frame as always, unlimited replacements I believe in this one. Basically it's a lifetime warranty on the frame if you're worried about breaking it. And got the Goober Canopy V2 now. For the camera, got a Runcam Nano 4.
guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to check the B25, a new 2.5-inch stylish Cinewoop by SpeedyB, which is designed for the DJI O3 system. In this quick video, I'm going to show you how to set it up and give you my feedback after testing it out. First of all, in terms of packaging, here you can see everything that comes inside the box of the B25. It contains a quick start guide and a card that points you to the user manual, Hex and Phillips screwdrivers, some SpeedyB stickers, 2 linear antennas for the DJI O3 unit and brackets for mounting them, screws for securing the antenna mounts, along with rubber parts for securing the DJI O3 camera unit, and screws for securing the O3 air unit, a 12 centimeters long battery Velcro strap, labeled bags with more screws, and of course the B25 drone. As for the aluminum alloy nose upgrade kit, which is available separately, it contains right and left aluminum alloy parts, which are going to replace this plastic part that mounts the DJI O3 Air and camera units. The same brackets, antennas, and parts which are included with the B25, along with ultra soft camera dampening silicone parts and screws and spacers for assembling the aluminum alloy parts. Here you can see what it looks like when the upgraded nose part is assembled. It is of course more robust than the original part, but the downside is that it is a bit heavier. It weighs 11.4 grams, and in comparison, the original molded plastic part weighs 6.2 grams. In terms of features and specs, the B25 features SpeedyB 1404 4600 kV motors. It's a 4S setup, and it comes with HQ Prop 2.5-inch propellers pre-assembled on the drone, but unfortunately, no spare propellers are included, so when purchasing this drone, make sure to get some extra ones. As you can see, the B25 comes without camera and VTX units. While SpeedyB suggests that other systems are compatible, it is mainly designed for the DJI O3, and a 6-pins joystick connector is pre-soldered to the all-in-one flight controller, so all you have to do is to plug it to the DJI O3 and mount the air unit along with the camera unit in this accessory or in the original one. Pay attention though that in case you would like to install other systems than the DJI O3, you will probably need to 3D print a new nose part. As for the other electronic components, which you can see through this plastic case, the B25 features a 25.5 by 25.5 millimeters all-in-one flight controller that features an F4 processor and an integrated 35 amperes BLLES 4-in-1 ESC that comes pre-flashed with BlueJ firmware. As the USB Type-C port of the flight controller is blocked inside the frame, on the back of the frame you can see this extension port, which will enable you to connect the flight controller to your computer and configure it using Betaflight. In addition, in case you'd like to, you can mount a GPS unit inside this plastic part, and a 4-pins joystick connector is pre-soldered to the flight controller. The B25 supports up to 1100 mAh 4S batteries. The batteries are mounted on the top of the drone and secured using this Velcro strap. Meteor LEDs are pre-installed inside the frame, and the B25 is available with an Express LRS 2.4 GHz radio receiver, with a TBS Crossfire radio receiver, or without a radio receiver. As for the frame, its wheelbase is 120 millimeters, and it features a wide X pattern. The thickness of the carbon fiber unibody plate is 2 millimeters. Without the O3 air and camera units, it weighs 129.4 or 134.5 grams, and including it, it weighs 166.9 or 172.1 grams. That means that if you want to stay below 250 grams, you'll probably need to use 750 mAh 4S batteries or below. In order to install the DJI O3 Air and camera units inside the nose part, make sure that these screws are a bit loose, which is not applicable, of course, for the plastic part. Unscrew the 1.6 millimeters Phillips screws from this side of the O3 air unit. Insert the O3 air unit to the nose part in this manner, making sure that the USB Type-C port is facing the top side. Secure the O3 air unit inside the nose part using the 1.6 millimeters screws, which are provided with the B25. So you need to use 4 screws, 2 on each side. After that, install the silicone parts inside their position and secure the O3 camera unit. Connect the 6 pins JST connector to the O3 air unit. Secure the nose part to the frame using these 2 screws over here. Insert the linear antennas to their brackets, and by the way, I forgot to mention that you need to install them on the O3 air unit to begin with. And finally, secure the antenna brackets, which by the way also double act as air intakes for keeping the O3 air unit cool, using the 1.6 millimeters Phillips screws over here and the M2 hex screws over here. As for installing a GPS unit, you will need to unscrew these 2 hex screws, remove this plastic part, connect the GPS unit to this 4 pins JST connector, and install the GPS unit over here. The GPS holder is designed to work with 18 by 18 millimeters GPS units, such as this one by Foxeer, but it is especially designed to work with the GPS by SpeedyBee, as the JST connector needs to be located on the center of the GPS unit. So this GPS unit will work with the system, but of course you will need to make sure that the wires are in the correct order. This is, by the way, not the correct order, I'm just doing it for this demo. And after placing the GPS unit, you'll need to secure it to the drone with the hex screws that you just removed. As for Betaflight configuration, here you can see the default settings that the B25 is shipped with. As always, these settings are available down below as a dump file, and the B25 comes pre-tuned, which is great. In order to complete the setup, you'll need to bind the radio receiver with the radio controller. By the way, the radio receiver is going to be powered up, even if the flight controller is going to be powered up via USB Type-C port only. After that, make sure that all the sticks and switches are responding as they should, and configure your favorite flight modes and OSD elements. As you can see, by assigning an auxiliary switch to the LED low flight mode, you'll be able to turn on or off the Meteor LEDs. And finally, your last step, in case you haven't done it already, is to bind the DJI O3 air unit with your DJI goggles. Another feature of the B25 that of course needs to be mentioned is that the flight controller features a built-in Bluetooth chip. It will enable you to configure the flight controller and the drone using SpeedyBee's application, which is available for both iOS and Android devices. Pay attention though that you are not able to turn off the VTX using VTX control, which means that when configuring the flight controller on the bench, make sure that the VTX is not going to overheat. In order to configure the flight controller using SpeedyBee's application, you'll need to power up the drone. As you can see, now I'm able to connect to the flight controller using the application. You can enter expert mode, and then you will face the familiar Betaflight interface. And using the toolbox, you'll also be able to configure the Meteor LED strip. This is a very useful feature for configuring the flight controller on the go, and the only downsides that I experienced is what I've mentioned earlier regarding the VTX overheating, and I also experienced some connection issues when
生食级的腌制虾，我超爱吃腌制虾。少人数海鲜又来啦！今天我来到深澳吃简单粗暴不深奥的海鲜之旅。因为汽车的电瓶坏掉了，我只好骑摩托车来。今天吃了2间海鲜神店，绝对是饕客口袋中的名单中的名单。最后带大家在附近喝喝咖啡饮料，看看海，让你想要豪华也行，想要简约的吃个含蓄但又高调的海鲜也很可以。这附近厉害又便宜的海鲜超级的多。今天这集只是开始，先跟我们来看看今天我们吃了些什么吧。嗨，大家好，我们今天来到深澳，非常深澳的深澳。然后我们今天，哇，这是我的心愿清单，我要来这边吃到海鲜小吃。然后有几间店真的是哇，超想来。然后我跟你讲，今天你是要讲一个故事，
就是我们今天骑车过来，
哇，超夸张的。
就是早上要开车的时候，结果突然电瓶没电了，然后想说好吧，我们都已经骑了那么早，那就骑车过来好了。结果其实也还蛮舒服的。
好，走，我们去吃第一间。好了，我们进来坐啦，先给大家看一下菜单。哇，这些东西真的超棒的哦！我是为了有那个虾，怎么能吃的腌制虾生的。然后你这边只能点一次菜哦，对，服务的时间不是很够的。好，我们要来开始啦！我就问你有没有很开心，有没有很兴奋？
要打我。
生食级的腌制虾，我超爱吃腌制虾，我跟你讲，好大一只哦。
超甜的。
对，它这一盘400克，我觉得值得，生食的。
你想想看，你如果去日本料理店，然后吃这种什么生食级的这种虾，然后需要多少？对，
它这一间其实价格非常划算，而且很好吃的。要说很好吃，我还没吃过，可是这真的是我心愿清单的第1名。哇，尾香哦！喜欢吃生的人一定会觉得很爽，不敢吃生的人一定会觉得我们在吃什么的。怎么样？很甜吗？
甜，有点海水的味道。
哦，老板示范剥虾，他说他这边没有服务的，我觉得服务还蛮好的。还没来啊！谢谢。
前面那个是贵囊，不要吃这个高杯吃。
哦，好，谢谢，太有趣了。
我想说，叫你老婆出来。
老板超好笑，他说：“你就挖洞给我跳，这样。”老板来吃，我要吃。哎，这虾很好剥，对，这拉起来了，真的只有新鲜。哦，哎，快，沾一点点，我觉得好像不用沾哎，这个感觉就很甜。对，我现在都还没吃，我现在顾着拍。
好吃啊！
哇，幸福感整个车填满这样子。我也要来吃一下，纪念一下。
老板说那一只是剥给我吃的。
我管啊！哦，超甜，哦，超好吃，还超甜的。它这个完全就已经有咸味了，这海的，你根本不用沾酱了，
有一点点海水的味道，
一点点就好了，已经够咸了，已经有那个哇，
还有海水的味道啊。
哦，我没有很夸张，我真的很好吃。
我跟你讲，今天跟我们之前的程序都不一样，之前菜上来的都是先拍菜的特写，今天顾不得拍，他说他要先吃。
哦，好好吃哦。哎，这个很好吃耶，一定要点这个生食的，跟你敢吃生食的话，你就觉得他说那个
也有熟的可以点啊。如果你不敢吃生食的话，
哦，那不行啊。我
们这一集仇恨值爆高哎，
真的，
会被观众讨厌。
我很做作，我就是很做作，怎么样？
不是你没有吃到，你怎么会知道我们很做作？真的是超好吃的啊！
哇，来吃这个炒套鸡，他说他卖不出去的炒套鸡。
国 气超香，这老板超幽默。
他超幽默的，而且他就是给你感觉他心情都很好，这样，然后到处跟每一桌的人在聊天，这样。
他把店里的每一桌客人都逗得超开心。
对对对。哇，一看就知道很新鲜的，超甜的感觉。我要吃吃看，我要吃吃看。
它那个口感啊，跟你一般真的就是，反正港片的新鲜跟人家我们一般市区的新鲜，我觉得是不同等级的。
对对对对对对。哦，我讲一下我的感觉啊，它这个有点像我们那种生食的那种口感，有一点点会有那种粘牙的感觉，然后脆脆的这样子，然后超甜的，而且它那个甜是很像我们生食的那种甜，可是它已经煮熟了，所以我觉得它在可能控温上面很好，所以炒得很快，让它可以留住那个甜味这样子。
我觉得不仅是它的食材很好。它的炒的功夫应该也很不错，
就是我觉得可以
调味
点起来
很棒。
对，他说他这个滞销卖不出去，跟他杀价。
我跟你讲，它刚上来的时候，它的香气真的是已经让我快要放下虾子，想要直接去夹它了。它的锅气超香。
我看过蛮多人都分享这一店，说神店这样。哇，来吃这个黄金蟹，然后我说我们想说，哎，又是秋天要吃蟹，他说不然，所以我说随便点一个，他就说不然你吃吃看，他们滞销了这个。
没有，他说是他们家的招牌。
对啊对啊，其实很大一盘呢，而且我觉得这边有一个好处就是它都明码标价。你看一下，它上面都是用手写的这样子。目前来说这一盘真的很大一盘，
蛮大块的蟹肉。
真的。哇，听到那个酥脆的声音了。
整个都可以吃。
软壳蟹对不对？
不是软壳蟹，但是它的壳真的已经不怎么硬了。
哦，我觉得这不用说了，这个真的很好吃。然后它原本那个，因为它是不知道是原本就有撒粉的，还是它原本在那个炸粉有腌料是咸的，所以它整个吃起来就已经很咸香了。
所以应该是有少少的胡椒粉在上面。
它整个吃下去整个很酥脆，这样很好吃。所以这一盘真的很大一盘。对，我觉得450我看到一盘这样蟹，我会觉得很开心，真的。
它是可以连壳一起吃的，但是因为我觉得它的壳是有些地方薄，有些地方比较厚一点点。像我的话就没有那么爱吃这种口感，所以我会有一些部分吃进去，有一些部分我就把它吐出来。然后我猜你应该是可以整只吃掉。
没错，我整只就把它吃掉了。好爽啊！目前这3个都是超棒的，它还有很多种其他菜，我今天就是代表是点3个这样，好赞。
补充一下，它的蟹肉是非常细致的，就是新鲜、饱满、甜，就这样。
对，补充一下，它这边拿少人数也可以用餐，然后也有卖炒面、炒饭，炒面、炒饭才60块而已。然后还有那种海产面，很大一盆哦，就是脸盆大那一种。100块，然后他2个人就是吃一盆那个，然后点个青菜这样子也可以，100多块，或是一个人人均100块就可以吃起来。然后你想要吃豪华的也可以，超棒的这一间。配单啊！哦，老板，我刚刚听到他在点菜，他说，哎，你不知道怎么点的话，你可以前面点3个，后面点3个，预算高，往后面点这样，还蛮那个啊。然后他来的时候，他就会问你说，就是你不太会有选择困难，因为老板会很明确把你的需求抓出来，然后跟你开一堆很好玩的玩笑这样。
对，他说前面3个，你看看前面3个是什么？
就是炒饭、炒面，哎，真的是你可以简单吃也可以，然后要大吃一顿也可以，人多人少都可以。
吃多饱，他们是3个人而已，炒饭、炒面、海产面都点1个，后面都不用吃了。
超赞的，我超爱这间的。
你知道我们刚刚结账多少钱吗？
多少
？12万5。可是我最后给他1250。
对啊，他后面讲那个很夸张的数字。
我刚进来的时候就听到了，他那边因为我瞄到人家的那个结账单，然后说哦，你这有饮料8万7，人家是870，好不好？
超新鲜的。 开吃啦，哇，这里面这是鲜鱼汤对不对？一份多少钱？80块。对，因为它其实这边最有名的应该是它的白汤米粉，不过我们今天已经吃一些东西了，然后不想要再吃淀粉类的东西了。
他刚才拍照的时候叫我拉好一点，我说没办法，这个锅子太深了。其实看他这样子，以为浅浅，其实连下面这个部分都是有东西的，这汤匙快要整个进去了。
哦，跟你讲，光你在这个地方啊，一到这个地方，你走路可以走的20步内啊，一定都会有一间很厉害的那种。
神奇。
对，我根本吃不完，今天还想说要吃3间什么的，可能可以啦，但是我就是先吃一下这样子。好，我们现在喝汤，然后这间店叫做探井臭豆腐，就是里面卖一堆海鲜的东西这样子。然后我就知道为什么大家隔壁的老板他会说什么我那个滞销，他当然可能是开玩笑，但是真的什么事要留一点深度给人家。他这边啊，烫一盘那个套 Q 150，然后蛮大一盘的。然后我没有，因为我今天没有点，我刚才已经吃过套 Q 了，不过大家点起来都很蛮棒的。然后它有那种海鲜米粉啊，透抽米粉啊，白汤米粉啊，这些海鲜面啊都很棒。但是我们刚才就已经讲过原因的啦，吃一下这个肉啊，这个肉好棒哦。
哇，这什么？
哦，吃这个鱼呢？
哇，这个肉它切的蛮厚的。这种弹性耶，我刚看到这样子白头，这个鱼应该蛮柴的，就没有，它不是干柴的，然后很有弹性，
好吃的，
好吃，非常好吃。
哇，这边真的就是太神奇了，我们刚一路上很惊奇的很多事情。
说不出话来。
我一直跟他说这边很厉害，他就不相信我，他说基隆有什么好拍的？我跟你讲，基隆可有的拍，我跟你讲，我搞不好一阵子都出现这个，大家不要觉得太烦。哦，我喝这个汤啊，这个汤完全没有味精，我敢保证，很好喝，然后完全就是靠那个海的鲜味。那个肉啊，我已经吃出来了，它就是鲨鱼，看跟鲨鱼烟长得是一模一样。
80块，然后一个小火锅的那样。
对，还不赖，真的还蛮棒的。哦，这里太厉害了，真的好远哦，不然真的是，哇，这1个礼拜来一次真的是不为过。
很希望就是住在有高速公路交流道的地方，离我家1分钟。
看有没有要高速公路开到淡水这样。哦，夹1块起来，这是我们点的鲨鱼愿意，1份55块，我觉得很可以，分量蛮多的。
好吃的，我刚刚本来看这个样子啊，觉得好像还好，结果吃下去，它的肉的部分超绵的，然后这个胶质的部分有够甜。这个
有比我们一般在那个台北吃到的那种鲨鱼面都好吃蛮多的，因为对，因为它这个是它的肉就是很绵这样子，不知道怎么说，对你吃一下就知道。
不好，就是它可能有点结冰感，可能退冰没有会好，而这个是完全不会。
对，非常好吃，可以点，而且55块真的不会太辛苦。说给大家看它这个柔软的感觉，不知道能不能让大家感觉得出来啊。好啦，这一间店既然叫做探井臭豆腐，我不点臭豆腐有点说不过去。我看这个样子是港式的臭豆腐，它中间挖一个洞。让你跳啊，不是拿一个夹那个泡菜放进去。
说让隔壁的老板跳吗？他刚刚这样子。
对，我跟你讲，他们这边其实稍微有点去区分一下，就是他那边的东西这边不会有，所以就算有的话，就是很少的重复。
也不太一样，那就是海鲜餐厅，这里是小吃。
对，隔壁的话，你要吃到很豪华的东西都有，这样我觉得还蛮不赖的。对，所以大家来这边的选择很多，而且真的很强。好，来吃一下这个港式的臭豆腐。哎呀，刚刚你翻车了，你在隔壁又没有点翻车鱼。对，超好吃哎！
我跟你讲，其实刚在外面最吸引我的就是臭豆腐。他看到这个炸的样子就是非常不得了，然后那么一吃放进嘴巴的时候，我就知道不一样。它那个酱汁啊，整个就是满满的坚果的香味。
真的，它这个酱是有花生酱的感觉，
对，
很香，然后很特别。我觉得就重点就是这些臭豆腐啊，其实大部分都差不多好吃，可是真的要多出记忆点，这一间绝对有记忆点。
然后它咬到里面啊，它也有臭豆腐的那种臭。然后呢，它的那个酥的部分就是薄薄一层而已，可是里面啊，就是它整个体现外酥内嫩给你就对了。
哦，如果有人跟我说这个臭豆腐不好吃，我会生气的那个。好好吃哦！ 给大家看一下它这个酱啊，就是你看这是那种花生酱味道，真的有那种花生酱，你吃下去你会有惊艳的感觉。对，然后你看哇，好像一塞进去，它刚刚整个喷出来，已经喷出来过了，所以看不太到了。啊，最后这个是卤酒孔，他们其实越靠这边然后大家越专业，因为他不会酒孔是酒孔，不会跟你解什么酒孔鲍啊，鲍鱼就是鲍鱼，就不会跟你解什么酒孔鲍之类的，所以这就是酒孔。他说是我们有拍一个是鲍鱼，但是有人说啊那是九孔，其实不是，老板就是很确定说这就是鲍鱼，鲍鱼就是鲍鱼，九孔九孔这样。我看蛮多人点这个，看起来很好吃。啊，试一下，试一下。很好吃，对，它跟我们一般在吃buffet的那种不一样，buffet的话会有一点点比较酸的东西，然后它的是比较是有咸味的那一种，可是这个咸味是那种比较日式酱，而且没那么咸这样子，它不是用。
它又更深了一层鲜味在上面。
对，很好吃耶！你看它这个卤的这个样子。啊，对，把贝比这还要小一些。
我觉得它的那个肺口弹性的部分啊，也不太输鲍鱼了。
那以后我吃鲍鱼只吃这个。
而且我说真的我不在意耶。
不过我上次在马港那个鲍鱼啊，我真的非常想念，真的有够好吃的，那个一颗70块，我觉得很 OK。好了，看一下这个菜单，零有9点给大家看一下，价钱都是很可爱的。你看肉燥饭30块，绝对是比台北便宜很多了。然后大青菜30块，这就是好几年前的物价的感觉，台北啦。它那白汤米粉啊，就一整碗，然后一整只的那个很大只的那个白汤。
不能这样说，白汤可以到很大只，它是小只的，
可是这是整条鱼的。
它的比例就是大概可以覆满的那个碗的水面这样。其实也不小了啦，因为你看它的价格。
等一下我看看能不能拍得到，我再开给大家看。我们吃好饱啊！它只是3家还蛮难的。我跟你讲，它旁边啊有一间坑口啊，也还蛮不错的。然后你看这一间，它是吃也是跟这种海边的那些什么安康啊什么的这些海鲜料都是
美式餐厅。
对，然后做海鲜的这样子很多。然后旁边这个透根其实都是在我的名单之中这样。但而我今天的食量真的有限，我顶多只能再喝个饮料这样子。对，然后这边很好玩，然后那边有8斗子的那个自行车那个过山洞那个，
深澳市民特步道。
对，超棒，大家可以一起玩这样子。你看大家在那边骑脚踏车有没有？然后那边还可以过一个山洞，这样很有趣。对，所以这边还蛮好玩的，我觉得就是以海鲜为主题，然后在这边吃东西，然后稍微玩一下。
3分钟的车程啊，就是海参馆，碧沙渔港也在这边。
对。在我们刚刚吃饭的地方啊，再过来一点，骑车是1分钟，走路大概要5到10分钟。然后在这个庙旁边叫昭明宫旁边啊，里面就有一个这个很酷的餐车，然后在卖饮料这样子。然后你可以坐在这边，后面有可以看海啊什么的。我觉得这样搭配一天的行程就是为了海鲜来，然后看看风景。然后喝个咖啡啊，吃个东西，
然后你还可以骑脚踏车。
对，而且最近天气很凉，而且我觉得这边很酷的是，它有卖鱼饲料，所以如果你有带小孩什么的话，你还可以在那边喂东西。你看这边还有乌龟，超酷的，超棒了吧？好了，去喝个饮料，我们就准备要来回家啦。拍一下它的菜单给大家看，有卖一些咖啡什么的，啊，要吃点东西，简单吃也都有。好啦，坐在这边很棒，就是那边可以远眺，橡皮岩在那边嘛，对，好像是酋长岩之类的，对，然后很漂亮，边看海景啊，然后消化一下刚刚吃的那些海鲜，对，然后很可惜的是，另外有几间我都还拍不了，所以这边我应该会很常拍，因为在过去1年有超多家，我真的，就异想天开，想说来这边吃爆海鲜，结果直接被1间就弄爆了，我真的好饱哦。而且这边的海鲜价格，我觉得都是，算很可爱的这样子，很推荐给大家。好，我们先到这边啊，那这边就推荐给大家。我们今天小试2家，如果你有吃过什么其他更好吃的啊，或是我觉得哇超专业，你不去真的是不行的，推荐给我，对，我会再来拍的。忘记跟大家说拜拜了，拜拜。
哎，我们开始喝啦，这个叫什么？
红枣枸杞石化冻。
哦，哎，你们还是特殊口味的。
对，就是蛮清甜的，然后喝起来就是养生的。
对，一瓶60吧，对不对？
对，但是我觉得它石化冻是比较那种果冻状，然后在里面，并不是说它散落在整个液体里面，然后让它变成是很冻状的。对，它比较，我觉得我到现在还没喝到石化冻，但的确肉也是可以看得到。
对，看还蛮多的这样。
对。
这什么口味的？
这是洛神酸梅。
怎么样？
就是也是还蛮，你有喝过那个酸梅汤，就是干干的这样子，甘甜甘甜甘酸，然后它就是那种味道。然后我刚刚说那个石花冻啊，我觉得它就是在里面比较有点像野果的存在，可是当然口感不是像野果那样，就是比较像果冻冻状一点这样。
哦，不过这种海景，然后喝个东西这样子，我觉得60块还蛮不。
Jesus. Haunted.
I just feel like, hey, I'm here.
And are you like going around repairing things?
Nope. I'm good.
Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Listener supported. WNYC Studios.
Hey, I'm Latif Nasser. This is Radio Lab in your podcast feed a day early because it is October 31st. We're celebrating Halloween by bringing you a ghost story for the occasion. There aren't a lot of radio stories out there that will genuinely spook you, but also make you laugh out loud. And this one, oh man, does exactly that. We first released it exactly 10 years ago today, reported by our now senior producer, Matt Kilty. This was one of his first stories, actually. It's about exactly how far one man is willing to go to understand his haunted house. This story is both a trick and the perfect fun-sized Halloween treat. So here you go. Happy Halloween. Enjoy Haunted. Mwah, ah, ah, ah.
Wait, you're listening.
You're listening to Radio Lab.
Radio
From
WNYC. I think there's a lot of moments in your life that you find yourself doing something.
Okay. If there's anybody in here, my name is Brittany. I'd love to be able to talk with you.
And you take that moment and step back from it.
Are you here?
And you realize, come through to us. What the fuck am I doing? What just happened? Was this real? And I think that was one of those moments.
Hey, I'm Jad Abumrad.
I'm Robert Krulwich.
This is Radio Lab, and today on the podcast, a ghost story.
Really? We're gonna do a ghost story?
Yeah, it's Halloween, dude.
Well,
you don't even know what we're. Just listen.
All right.
Just listen. Okay. This one comes from our producer Matt Kilty.
Yeah, so I first heard this story from a buddy of mine. His name is Dennis Conroe.
Dennis? Andy?
Hey, what's up, dude? That's producer Andy Mills. You guys are all buddies. Two little buds. Anyways, the story? All right, well, Dennis.
Yes.
It's about a lot of things, but in particular, a house. So let's start with the house. When did you move back in?
Well, let's see. I was probably, I don't know, age 20.
Dennis had been going to college.
Yep.
By the way, what did you study?
Creative writing.
Okay.
But I just kind of got bored there. Kind of stopped going to class. And I think once my parents realized that, they weren't very happy.
I would assume so.
And so yeah, I was kind of asked to come back home.
Back to a town just outside Kansas City.
A little town called Grandview.
Did you grow up in this house?
I did. And the house was
fairly old.
Yeah, it was about 105 years old at the time.
2-story white house, nice little porch, awning over it.
Typical farmhouse style.
And so you were at your parents' home back in your old bedroom?
Yep, in my old childhood bedroom. Yeah, so there was always a sense of like, I need to get out of this house. It's holding me back somehow from things.
So you got a job.
Worked a job and got laid off.
And 1 year turned into 2, and then 3, then 4, and then 5.
It was not a great time to be there.
In what way?
Just that I felt like I was still 16.
He says he'd overhear his mom telling people on the phone.
Well, he's never got to move out, is he?
And then she started circling classifieds.
Jobs for typists, printing press, sales rep, typesetter. I don't know. I think everything in my life, however I mean for it not to, sort of moves at my own snail's pace.
Eventually.
Well, I was fairly old, like 27 maybe.
Actually, he was 28. After 8 years in this house, Dennis gets a steady job, finds this cheap apartment.
This ratty 6-plex apartment.
He starts packing up his things, but right when he's set to move out, to finally leave home,
My mom got really sick.
Dennis's mom had been in remission from breast cancer for like 9 years, but that summer, her doctors told her that it had returned.
And had spread quite a bit. So I said to her, like, do you want me to be here or do you want me to go? And she was like, well, if this is my time, she wants to go knowing that her kids can take care of themselves.
So Dennis moved out. And about 5 months later, his mom died.
Yeah, she went pretty fast. About a month or so after my mom died, my dad found out he had stage 4 prostate cancer.
Oh.
And he was really too sick to take care of the house and just being a guy by himself at that point.
Now Dennis pretty much had to come home.
I'd take care of him
3-4 times a week.
And as he got worse, stage 4 can take care of themselves.
So Dennis moved out. And about 5 months later, his mom died.
Yeah, she went pretty fast. About a month or so after my mom died, my dad found out he had stage 4 prostate cancer.
Oh.
And he was really too sick to take care of the house and just being a guy by himself at that point.
Now Dennis pretty much had to come home.
I'd take care of him
3-4 times a week.
And as he got worse, he had said to me, like, hey, let's try to find you a house to buy so that I can teach you how to, like, do all of the kind of stuff that one has to do. That men know how to do things like change out plumbing, all this kind of stuff. And so we put an offer on a house.
But that fell through. And before they could find something else,
the cancer from his prostate spread to his brain, and the last week of his life, he was really not there. I can remember one day, like maybe a week or so after he had died.
Dennis was walking through the empty kitchen.
And there was so much stuff. Papers all over the place. Junk mail all over the kitchen floor.
Down in the basement.
Tools all over the place. I had this moment of, here are his tools, and now I have them in my hand. And, I just remember picking up this claw hammer and just crying. Because this is now my hammer. This is now my house. This is now my problem.
But a few days pass, and you start thinking,
okay,
I can handle this.
Yeah.
Just gotta get in there, clean it out, sell it.
Clean and flip. That was the plan.
So, at the age of 32, moves back in.
There was all this just junk in the basement.
Puts that stuff on the curb.
Sale after sale after sale.
And one day he finds himself standing in the downstairs bathroom, looking at the nasty floor tile.
It was just horrible.
His dad had meant to replace it before he died, but, couldn't finish.
And my thought was like, oh, we'll just do this one bathroom so it looks pretty good to sell.
Problem was,
protected
his dad never
by
showed him how to
copyright.
do any of that stuff.
It was at that point that I was like, oh, YouTube.
Now hold the tile in one hand firmly and begin with your ceramic tile never.
So he went online, learned how to tile, do some plumbing, and he redid the bathroom.
And it turned out pretty good. It was kind of fun. And then the next thing I knew, I was taking wallpaper off of the kitchen. Well, that's got to go. Hardwood floors, insulation in the attic, glass block windows in the basement.
And pretty soon,
that turned into the whole house.
And how long did that take?
5 years.
Actually, it was 6. Wow. And he says the whole time he was doing this renovation, at night,
I would have these dreams where my parents just kind of came through the back door. And it was just like, oh, what are you doing here? Oh, that's right, you're dead. And then I would turn my back, and then they would have somehow undone all of the things that I did.
Oh, they had brought the house back to what state it was in when they were alive.
Yeah.
Huh.
And I probably had this dream, I'm not kidding, like at least 100 times.
Wow. Night after night after night.
It just kept going on, and ultimately kind of drove me crazy.
And so one day, after yet another one of these dreams, Dennis is finally like, all right, I'm selling it. Puts it up on the market, starts waiting for a buyer, and then something strange happens.
Well, something kind of strange. I had made this friend, and she came over for the first time.
It was like a date?
Lady friend?
Yeah, it was a lady friend. And so
Dennis was giving her a tour, showing her all the improvements, until
she was in the kitchen.
right by the basement door in the kitchen, when
She was like, oh, there's some kind of weird presence here. And I was just like, okay, well, that was kind of a sign that was not going to last very long. But
fast forward a few years,
didn't really think too much about it.
until one day Dennis's realtor is having an open house. No one shows.
So she was in the house by herself.
And Dennis starts getting these text messages from her.
It's like, dude, your house is haunted. Like, I could hear people walking around, and
She texted that there was definitely something weird going on.
right by the basement door.
Wait, that's the same spot? Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, that's kind of weird. But then here's the crazy thing.
Not too long after this, Dennis bumps into an old friend of his, and he's like, hey, funny thing, 2 different people, 2 separate occasions, had come over to the house, and they said they felt this weird presence.
And she was like, wait, right by the basement door?
Oh, get out.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. So I've got Heather, I've got Stacy, I've got Carla, all 3 who say they feel this weird presence.
Would you consider yourself a bit of a skeptic about such things?
I would say so. Rationally, I'm just gonna say no.
So you don't believe in ghosts?
No.
All right, what happened next?
Well, this also happened to be right at the time that I sold the house.
Dennis had finally put some pen to paper, signed a contract, packed up all his stuff.
And so Carla, the girl that first felt this thing,
The girl he went on a date with, they stayed friends.
said to me, like, you know, I'm really curious about this. Would you mind if I call like these ghost people to come and like check out this place? I was like, well, sure. I don't care. You know, it's like, why not? So very shortly, in a few minutes actually, we are bringing paranormal investigators to find out what's in the basement. You know, I'm just kind of walking through the house. I think I got this on tape of just me walking through the house. I'm like, well, you know, this is probably a waste of time, but I'm still kind of curious about it.
Yeah, it's Friday night. What else you gonna do?
Yeah. Right. It's a Friday night, mid-November.
Around 6 o'clock,
I can see some cars parking on the street, so I go downstairs.
people start filing in.
Maybe 10 people.
We all have different specialties. Larry's our tech guy.
About 4 techies, 2 sets of clairvoyants.
Chantal's the psychic.
She's very gifted.
Who are all these people?
Can I get you to just say your name?
My name is Brittany Elaine.
Well, they're part of the Kansas City Paranormal Investigators Club, or some kind of thing.
And pretty much right off the bat,
When you guys came in, you were saying like you could talk, or like if you could get.
But when we first got here, we both saw a woman looking out the window at the top.
So what did she look like?
I didn't really see what she looked like.
She had like
Katie can
long
describe
hair. It was like gray, and she was wearing one of those weird old timey dresses.
Dennis was like, whatever.
They set up cameras in the basement and in the kitchen.
And the clairvoyants decided they wanted to try to talk to this woman, or maybe any other spirit in the house. And so Brittany,
I don't know if I even explained to you what we
who
know.
was like the ringleader of the night,
She sort of explained how she does things. You know, she was like the best way that she could get them to talk to them was through flashlights.
Yeah, so what they do is they take a few flashlights, turn them on, and then they unscrew the tops of them just enough so that they turn off. And then they just kind of set the flashlights that are now off in the room by themselves. And the idea is that if the ghost or the spirit wants to communicate, they can just sort of touch the top of one of the flashlights with their ghosty finger, and that'll turn it back on.
When it's barely connected, all they have to do is either push or pull a tiny bit of energy.
I see.
So it's the
not
the
hard.
easiest for them to do.
And it was like, okay. So she took 3 flashlights, and we all sat in this dark room in a circle.
Okay.
And
Brittany sets the flashlights in the middle of the circle by themselves. No one's touching them.
and she says,
If there's anybody in here, my name is Brittany. Would love to be able to talk with you. Can you turn one of those lights on?
and we sit there,
Are you here?
Then all of a sudden this light kind of barely blinks on. And then she said, okay,
Thank you.
please turn it off. And then it goes off.
What we can do with these lights here is if I can ask.
And then she says, we have 3 lights here. The one you just turned on, we'll call yes. Please turn on one more, and that will be no.
So if you could do that for us, that would be wonderful.
And then a second light comes on.
No way. Are you like
Yeah.
scanning the room, like looking for somebody who has like a little switch or something?
Yeah, but like we didn't pay these people, so they have no reason to fake this, I suppose. But I just keep thinking, well, the house is really close to the train tracks, and maybe the train.
Vibrations of the train. Yeah, that makes sense.
But all of a sudden, they were like, "Can you hear that? Footsteps."
It sounds like there's somebody walking right here.
And they're going towards the kitchen. And I could hear dishes rattling on the countertop in the kitchen.
No one's in the kitchen?
No one's in the kitchen.
If you're in the kitchen right now, can you turn one of these lights on?
And so they sit and stare at these 3 flashlights. And then
I'm leaving the room. What happened?
Well, actually, everyone in that room, died. Except for Dennis.
Oh shit.
I have no idea why I even invited you into this building. They did not die.
What happened to them? Actually, they're fine. It turns out that there was a guy downstairs in the basement, one of the techies, walking around, pitch black down there, and he just like bangs his head into like an air duct, and the sound just reverberated throughout the whole house. Scared him a little bit. It was very Blair Witchy. Yeah. Anyhow, the techies
decide that they want to get the 3 psychics down in the basement by themselves. And so, these 3 women go down in the basement by themselves. We kind of hear them downstairs talking, but we don't really know what's going on.
That was interesting.
They come back upstairs,
How'd it go?
and they said,
The girl was downstairs.
well, she was definitely down there.
the old woman that they first saw when they got to the house, and they said that she was standing down in the basement next to where the old furnace used to be. And they told Dennis that she said that she'd lived here for a long time. And Dennis was like, wait a second. He knew that back in the 30s or something, a woman had lived in this house.
Who was kind of not all there.
And one day she had gone down into the basement.
And thought she was picking lice off of chickens and throwing them into this big furnace that was downstairs in the basement at the time.
She got a little too close to the furnace, story goes.
Caught herself on fire and then died there, I guess, in the basement.
Oh.
But then there was another man downstairs who showed himself to me, but he won't talk and he just completely disappeared.
What did he look like?
He was bald. He was about Rick's height, but it wasn't Rick.
Did he have a build like me?
Yeah.
A lot like me?
Not a lot, but similar. Definitely.
If I were to show you a picture of my father, would you have any sense of this was him?
If I saw a picture of him, yeah, maybe.
I found this the other day. Oh.
Dennis goes and gets this photo of his dad that he had that was left over from his memorial service.
Yep, that's the man I saw.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep,
Let's
that's the man
pause
I
this
saw.
for just a second. Like, she's very hesitant at the beginning. Just like, well,
Alright, I should jump in here really quick and just tell you that this was actually the first time that Dennis had ever listened to this tape.
Really?
Yeah, and the reason is because for a long time he didn't want to listen to it.
Why?
Well, I think part of it had to do with this moment because
This is the point where my skepticism kind of kicked off.
and part of it had to do with what happens next.
That's coming up when we return.
Radiolab is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states.
Do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do.
On this week's On the Media, we're at that point in the presidential race where everyone's dropping the F-bomb.
In 2018, when I said this is a fascist social and political movement and people freaked out, that was one thing, but it's 2024 right now.
On this week's On the Media from WNYC. Find On the Media wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Radio Lab. Let's get back to Matt Keelty's ghost story, and we'll pick up with our main guy, Dennis Conroe, having just heard from the ghost hunters that they encountered a spirit in the basement of his home who looks remarkably like his dead father.
Yep, that's the man I saw here. Yep.
So he's here.
Yep, he's here.
Can we try to talk to him?
We can try to talk to him.
He's in the basement? Or here, or
I feel like he went upstairs, not in the basement anymore.
can we go upstairs and just talk to him?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I hadn't really told them a whole lot about what the different rooms in the house were, but they led me upstairs to what was his room and to the corner of the room where his bed was.
And they had no idea that used to be.
They had no idea. And I said to them, okay, well, if he's going to talk, he'll just talk to me. All right, Dan, are you here? And you turn on a light if you are. Thank you. Thank you, Dan. We're going to call that yes. You can turn that one off now. And turn on the no light, any other light, please. I need to know that you're here.
There you go. Oh.
Thanks, Dan.
Do you want us to leave?
Dan, would you like these people to leave? And just talk to me?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
We'll stay right here.
Dan, are you in a good spot? Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay, Dad? Yes, all right, good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, everything off. Everything's off, almost. Almost. All right, thanks. Yep, and I asked you this, is Mom here too? Is Mom here too? And the other of the three flashlights lights up.
Huh.
Yes, she is here. All right. Hi, Mom. I didn't know that you're both here, but I love you very much, and I miss you both. I have so many questions for you, but I can't ask them all in just yes or no questions. But I said, well, have you been able to see the things that I've done to the house? And both of the lights lit up very brightly, yes. And then, so I've lived here for 6 years. Redone the house, I've done a lot of things. I said, what do you think? Are you happy with this? Are you happy with the things I've done with the house? They both lit up very brightly, yes. And I said, are you proud of me? Are you proud of what I've done and who I am? It's a very bright yes. It's watching. So, and do you live here? And he said no, and then he left. And then never slept foot in this house. One of the said, well, there was a guy down in the corner of the basement who wouldn't really show himself, but you know, he showed himself enough, and then turned his back and then left. Well, they said that he went upstairs. And I said, describe that man.
那就是说，
I'm going to leave you this. You've been haunting my dreams a lot about this house. And I know it's very important to you. It's very important to me. But this is the time that we leave.
Yeah.
So that's where it ends.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I recall it being. Exactly like that. And yeah, I kind of teared up a bit.
And keep in mind that this was the first time that Dennis had heard this tape, and so we played it back to him because we just wanted to see like how he remembered that experience.
You know, I guess part of my fear of listening to it was that it would change it, and that it would be a different experience. It would be a little more hokey, and it would be a little more unclear what was happening. But listening to it again, it was as I recalled it being.
So in the end, does he believe he was actually talking to his dead parents?
Well,
No. I ended up actually calling this guy who explained to me how this whole flashlight thing works, and that there is a perfectly non-paranormal explanation as to what's going on with the flashlight.
It almost feels bad manners at this point to have a practical explanation, but I'm very curious to hear it.
Sure. Well, what's going on is you turn the flashlight on.
Yeah.
And when you turn the flashlight on, the bulb gets really hot.
Right.
And then you take the top of the flashlight and you unscrew it just like enough that the flashlight flickers off. So the flashlight's off, and the bulb, it got really hot, so the inside of the flashlight also got really hot. And there's this little piece of plastic inside the flashlight that when it got hot, it expanded. And now, since the flashlight's off, that piece of plastic, it starts to cool down and starts to contract. And when it contracts, it pushes these two tiny bits of metal together. These two little bits of metal come into contact, and that's your circuit. So the circuit opens, the light bulb, it goes back on.
Oh, then it warms again and
And then
cools
it gets
again.
hot, yeah. And so the little piece of plastic, it starts to get hot, it starts to expand, it pushes the two
And
pieces
these
apart.
people chose this flashlight because it had that particular property.
Yeah, do you think it's like a con or something? No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I mean, I even talked to Dennis about this. He's like, I think they're just trying to make sense of randomness. I mean, I don't think they necessarily know that this flashlight does this thing and therefore they can manipulate people.
Well, here's why I don't think it's a con. Because in this case. It's such a strange coincidence that whenever he wants his mom and dad, his ghostly mother and father, to approve of him and congratulate him and honor him with a yes. I mean, it's random, he could get a no, but he gets a yes.
It's just chance. And you told Dennis all this. Yeah, I told Dennis because you told me to tell Dennis.
It's true. It's true. I forced it. Okay, so when you told him, what did he say?
Well, on one level, like it didn't faze him. Dennis basically said, like, look, I know
that the way that the world works is the way that the world works. People don't come back from the dead. People don't talk to you through flashlights.
But he also said that like he's not gonna let go of that experience. He wants to have it both ways.
I guess so. I guess I want to have both. Yes, this didn't happen, and yes, this absolutely happened.
I understand that.
Yeah. Because even if you are the world's biggest skeptic, if you don't believe in ghosts, like there really aren't that many ways to talk about these sorts of things that we all feel. You know, guilt for the things that we've done in our past, the loss of those who we've loved. That like ghost stories kind of seem to stick around because they are an experience, albeit like a metaphorical experience, but an experience that lets us talk about these things that we can't adequately talk about. You know, that feeling of being haunted.
So did he eventually sell the house and move out?
Yeah, sold the house, moved out.
No more dreams of his parents haunting him.
Well, it's been odd in the time that I've sold the house. Now, I thought the dreams would stop. And now, the dreams are that I am the one haunting the house of the new people. Where I will just walk in.
Really?
And just be like, hey, I'm here.
And are you like going around repairing things?
Nope, I'm just like being somewhat shocked at what they've done to it. It's like it never stops, you know?
Thanks, Matt.
No problem.
Matt Keelty. I'm Jad Abumrad.
I'm Robert Krulwich.
Thanks for listening.
Hi, I'm David, and I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. Radiolab was created by Jad Abumrad and is edited by Soren Wheeler. Lulu Miller and Latif Nasser are our co-hosts. Dylan Keefe is our director of sound design. Our staff includes Simon Adler, Jeremy Bloom, Becca Bressler, W. Harry Fortuna, David Gable, Maria Paz Gutierrez, Sindhu Nyanam Sambandan, Matt Keelty, Annie McEwen, Rebecca Lax, Alex Neeson, Sarah Kari, Sarah Sandback, Ariane Black, Pat Walters, and Molly Webster. Our fact checkers are Diane Kelly, Emily Krieger, and Natalie Middleton.
Hi, this is Ellie from Cleveland, Ohio. Leadership support for Radiolab science programming is provided by the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, Science Sandbox, a Simons Foundation initiative, and the John Templeton Foundation. Foundational support for Radiolab was provided by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation.
On Notes from America, we have conversations with people across the country about how we can truly become the nation that we claim to be. Each week we talk about race, our politics, education, relationships, usually all of them, because everything's connected. And you, our listeners, are at the center of those conversations. I'm Kai Wright. Join me on Notes from America, wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to check the Air 5, a new 1:43 scale micro RC drift car by Sniklo. In this quick video, I'm going to go over its features and specs, compare it with the other models by Sniklo, and provide you with my initial feedback after testing it out. First of all, in terms of packaging, the Air 5 comes inside this box. It contains the micro RC car, a new updated radio controller, 4 spare drifting tires, a spoiler, and a USB Type-A to a USB Type-C cable, which is used for charging the internal battery of the micro RC car. In terms of features and specs, the Air 5 is currently the biggest and most powerful micro RC car that was released by Sniklo. It weighs 92.9 grams, its length is 106 millimeters, its width is 44.2 millimeters, its height is 33.5 millimeters, the distance between the right and left wheels is 40 millimeters, and the distance between the front and back wheels is 61.5 millimeters. Here you can see the Air 5 next to other RC cars by Sniklo. These two are 1:76 scale micro RC cars, so the Air 5 is definitely bigger, and the S&T Niva is actually a 1:43 scale micro RC car as well. It weighs about the same as the S&T Air 5, but the Air 5 is a bit bigger. Here is a closer look, and as you can see, the Air 5 definitely has more presence than the smaller micro RC cars. As for the other specs of the Air 5, it features a four-wheel drive system. There is no differential, so the wheels always move together. In addition, each wheel is individually suspended. Just like the other micro RC cars by Sniklo, on the top side of the car you can find a magnetic cover, which is going to enable you to attach an all-in-one FPV camera. This camera was not included with my version, however you can either purchase it separately or get a version that includes it. On the bottom side of the Air 5, you can find a USB Type-C port, which is used for charging its internal 500 mAh 1S LiPo battery. Over here you can find the power switch. Short pressing it is going to turn on the car. Short pressing it again is going to switch it off, and by holding the power switch for about 5 seconds, you are going to initiate binding mode, which is indicated by the flashing LEDs. The canopy of the Air 5 is magnetic, and by pulling the bottom side in the following manner, you'll be able to separate it from the main body. Pay attention though that the LEDs and the camera connector are connected to the main board using these DSD connectors, so you should be careful when separating the main body from the canopy. Here you can see what it looks like when the main body is separated from the canopy. As far as I can tell, the build quality seems very good. The 500 mAh 1S LiPo battery is protected using these plastic parts, which also protect the main board. These parts are made out of metal, which is important, as in my experience, if they are plastic, they are very likely to break. So metal parts are going to ensure that the car is going to last longer. It's going to be relatively easy to replace these parts, which are used for the suspension system, and as far as I can tell, these are not very likely to break. However, replacing the servo that controls the front steering and maybe servicing other parts of the micro RC car can be a bit challenging. As for replacing the tires, it is done by simply removing the current one by pulling it, and then you can simply push the new one into the wheel. It's very easy to remove the rubber tires, but it's a bit trickier to remove the plastic drifting tires, so you should be careful when removing them, as you don't want to damage the wheels. Just to be on the safe side, my advice is when changing the tires is to remove the wheel completely by unscrewing this Phillips screw, and then you'll be able to remove the wheel and safely change the tire. So now, as you can see, I'm able to remove the drifting tire from the ring without adding extra pressure on this part. and I can easily place the rubber tire instead, put back the rim, and secure it using this Phillips screw. Now, by the way, personally, I prefer driving the R5 with the rubber wheels, as driving it with the drifting wheels can be quite challenging, as it doesn't feature a built-in gyro. As for the new radio controller, it is very similar to the older one, and it is now included with all Snicklow's micro RC car. The bottom part is completely identical, so operating the radio controller is done by 3 AAA batteries, which are inserted into this compartment and then placed in the radio controller in the following manner. What is new in the new radio controller is the control of all the trims. So instead of using these buttons for controlling the steering and these 2 buttons for controlling the power, it is now done using these dials. These dials are also going to enable you to adjust the gyro, something which is not supported yet by the R5. So as far as I know, another version which should feature a built-in gyro is going to be released in the future. And you can also adjust the steering direction, which is something which is not supported by the previous radio controller. Adjusting the steering direction is still not supported by the R5, so probably it's going to be supported somewhere in the future. And by the way, whenever you are reaching the midpoint, the radio controller is going to beep. So for example, now I'm adjusting the steering. So this is all the way to the right, and this is all the way to the left. And whenever the knob is set to the mid position, it is going to be indicated by a beeping sound. In addition, all these familiar 4 buttons are now located over here, and they are indicated by a label next to them. So this is the matching button. In order to initiate the binding procedure, you'll need to long press it for about 5 seconds. And then the flashing LED is going to indicate that the radio controller is in binding mode. Next to it, you can find the FPV box button, which is going to turn on or off the camera, which is attached to the micro RC car. These 2 buttons control the LED.